Good morning, everyone. Um, Virgo, there's a confession brewing in someone's chest that's been compressed for so long it's turned into something physical, aching, heavy, impossible to ignore anymore. And when they finally speak it, when those words leave their mouth and hit the air between you, the density of what they're carrying is going to transfer directly into your body, making you understand instantly that this isn't casual affection or convenient attraction, but oceanic love, the kind with trenches so deep sunlight doesn't reach, with pressure so intense it would crush ordinary feelings, with ecosystems thriving in the darkness that you never knew existed because the surface looked calm enough to convince you nothing significant was happening underneath. Let me map what's moving through the emotional underwater currents surrounding you. The person preparing this declaration has been carrying it silently for longer than you'd believe if they told you the timeline. We're talking months at minimum, possibly years, depending on how long you've known each other. And during all that time, while you were having normal interactions, while you were discussing mundane topics, while you were perhaps dating other people or focusing on your career or simply existing in your own orbit, they were drowning in feeling for you. Every conversation was torture and gift simultaneously. Every time you smiled at them felt like being crushed and elevated at once. They've been living double reality, the one you see where they're functional and appropriate, and the one they inhabit internally where the sun, their entire planet revolves around, and they're trying desperately not to let you notice the gravitational pull you exert on their every thought and decision. The ocean metaphor isn't random poetry they chose, it's the only language that comes close to accurate. They've tried other ways to describe this. They've rehearsed telling you hundreds of times in their mind, testing different words, different approaches, different metaphors. Everything else felt insufficient. Love like a mountain, too static. Love like a fire, too violent. But ocean that captures it, because their love has depths, has undercurrents, has parts visible to you on the surface and entire ecosystems you've never suspected existing below. There are species of devotion living in their deepest parts that have never seen light, that survive on nothing but the knowledge that you exist somewhere above them. And when they say it's as deep as the ocean, they're being painfully literal about having feelings for you that go down and down and down until the pressure would kill lesser emotions. Now, about this secret that's coming out. It's entangled with the love confession, but it's not the same thing. The secret is information they've been withholding that changes context of everything. And they're revealing it now because the confession forces honesty. You can't declare oceanic love while maintaining lies of omission. The architecture of deep feeling demands structural integrity. You can't build that kind of vulnerability on foundation of deception. So they're about to tell you something they've been hiding, something that's going to make you reassess your entire understanding of your history together. The secret might be that they've loved you since the very beginning, that first meeting you barely remember, that initial conversation you thought was forgettable. They marked as the day their life divided into before and after you is less than #0. 5 hash is greater than. While you were being casually friendly, they were being irrevocably changed. While you were thinking nice person, they were thinking I'm in serious trouble. And they've been carrying that asymmetry this whole time, watching you be oblivious to the fact that for them, every interaction has been weighted with significance you couldn't detect because you weren't looking for it. The secret is that your whole friendship or acquaintanceship has been them managing an intensity you didn't ask for while trying to maintain enough normalcy that you'd stay in their life even if you couldn't give them what they actually wanted. Or the secret is about sacrifice they made for you that you never knew about. They intervened in some situation to protect you, or they removed themselves from opportunity so you could have it, or they defended you to someone without you ever knowing you were being discussed. They've been loving you in ways that cost them something, real professional opportunities they declined because they'd have to move away from you, relationships they didn't pursue fully because their heart wasn't available, choices shaped entirely around maintaining proximity to you, even when you had no idea you were the determining factor. And revealing that now is terrifying for them because it exposes just how much power you've had over their life without wielding it consciously, how much influence you've exerted without knowing you were influencing anything at all. This reflection demands something from you. When someone tells you they've been rearranging their life around you while you were unaware, is less than has-own. Zero hash is greater than your first response might be to feel guilty or uncomfortable or even violated by the intensity of unasked for devotion. But consider whether their love being deep makes it wrong, or whether the wrongness is only in how society tells us love should develop mutually, transparently, at matching pace, when actual love often arrives asymmetrically and has to be carried privately until revealing it becomes safe or necessary or simply unavoidable. The confession is coming via message first, not in person. They're too afraid of your immediate facial response. They need the buffer of screen and distance to get the words out without your real-time reaction destroying their courage mid-sentence. So you're going to receive text or email or voice note that's longer than anything they've ever sent you before. The length itself will be your first clue that something significant is happening. You'll see their name on your phone with paragraph after paragraph waiting, or you'll open your email to message that requires scrolling, and you'll know before you read that whatever this is, it's not casual. They've probably written and deleted this message 15 times, started it drunk at 2 a.m. and deleted it sober at 8 a.m., composed it in moment of courage and erased it in moment of fear. But this time they're going to hit send because something changed. Maybe they can't stand carrying it anymore. Maybe they saw you with someone else and realized silence was going to cost them any chance they might have had. Maybe they're moving away and figured they have nothing to lose. Maybe they just hit their breaking point where keeping quiet hurt more than risk of your rejection. Whatever pushed them over the edge into action, it's already happened, which means the message is already written, already sitting in drafts, already waiting for the moment of bravery required to transform it from private confession into communication that involves you. The message is going to include specific details that prove this isn't recent development. They're going to reference moments you shared that you barely remember, but they've preserved like sacred texts. That time you laughed at their joke in particular way. That afternoon when you were sad about something and they wanted to fix it but could only sit with you. That conversation where you mentioned your dreams and they mentally filed it away as information about the person they'd do anything to build future with. They're going to cite chapter and verse of your shared history to demonstrate that this love isn't whim or fantasy, it's carefully observed, extensively documented reality of someone who's been paying attention to you with devotion you didn't know was being paid. And then there's the other unexpected message, separate from the love confession, but arriving in proximity to it, creating this cluster of intense communication that's going to overwhelm your emotional bandwidth. This second message is from someone you haven't heard from in substantial time. And it's going to arrive right when you're processing the oceanic love declaration, creating this surreal simultaneity where your past and present are both demanding response. This other message might be from ex who disappeared, from friend who drifted away, from family member who's been estranged, from person you thought was gone from your life permanently. And their timing is weirdly synchronistic with the confession, like universe is testing whether you can handle multiple emotional situations at once or whether you'll short circuit from the cognitive load of having to respond thoughtfully to competing claims on your attention and care. The unexpected message has its own weight. It's not light, hey, how are you, reconnection attempt. It's substantial. They have something to tell you, something to apologize for, something to ask from you. Maybe they're reaching out because they're in crisis and you're the person they think of when they need help. Maybe they're apologizing for hurt they caused and they've been working toward readiness to take accountability. Maybe they've been thinking about you and can't shake the feeling that reaching out is important even if they don't fully understand why. Whatever their motivation, the message is going to require real response from you, not just polite acknowledgement, and having to navigate that while simultaneously processing oceanic love confession is going to feel like being pulled in multiple directions by currents you can't swim against. This reflection should ground you. Receiving multiple intense communications simultaneously isn't coincidence. It's inflection point where universe is showing you who actually values you enough to be vulnerable, who's willing to risk rejection, to tell you truth. And your responses to these messages are going to determine which relationships deepen and which dissolve, making this week or so period of heavy communication actually crucial decision point about who you're going to allow into your intimate life going forward. Let's return to the oceanic love confession and talk about what they're actually asking from you without directly asking. They're going to say they needed you to know that they couldn't keep carrying it alone, that they don't expect anything from you. But that's not completely true. Of course, they're hoping. Of course, they want reciprocation. Of course, there's part of them that's desperately wishing you'll read their confession and realize you felt the same way all along without recognizing it. They're giving you out by claiming they don't need response, but they absolutely need response. They need to know if revealing their depths changes anything about how you see them, about what's possible between you, about whether their love can find matching depth in you, or whether it's destined to remain underwater, unseen, unmet by anything equivalent from your direction. The pressure on you receiving this confession is intense. You're suddenly responsible for someone's most vulnerable disclosure. Your response will be remembered forever by them, analyzed, preserved, referenced in their private thoughts for rest of their life, regardless of whether relationship develops or ends at this confession. How you handle their oceanic love becomes part of their story about themselves, whether they confirm they're unlovable or whether they learn they're brave, whether rejection reinforces wounds or whether gentle response helps them understand that love not returned doesn't invalidate love itself. That's unfair weight for you to carry. You didn't ask to be repository for their deepest feelings, but it's the reality when someone makes you central to their emotional universe without your permission. Here's what you're probably feeling or about to feel. when the message arrives. Panic, especially if you don't feel the same way, especially if you've been viewing them as friend and this confession detonates that framework. You're going to experience this person suddenly becoming different in your perception, not because they changed, but because the filter through which you saw them as safe, as uncomplicated, as not romantically interested has been removed, and now you're seeing the full intensity of what's been directed at you this whole time. Some people find that intensity flattering, others find it claustrophobic. Your honest reaction matters more than performing gratitude for devotion you didn't want. But maybe, and this is where it gets interesting, maybe you're going to read their confession and feel relief. Maybe you've been feeling something too, but dismissed it as impossible because you thought they were unavailable or uninterested. Maybe their confession is giving you permission to acknowledge what you've been suppressing. Maybe their oceanic metaphor resonates because you've got depths for them too that you haven't let yourself explore because you were convinced it was one-sided in opposite direction. And if that's the case, if their message is the catalyst that lets you admit you've been in love with them while trying to maintain friendship, then this confession isn't ending anything, it's beginning everything. And the relief you both feel at discovering the feeling is mutual. After all this time, carrying it separately is going to be its own kind of overwhelming. This reflection is crucial. Your response doesn't have to be immediate, even though they're probably checking their phone every 30 seconds waiting to see if you've read it. You're allowed to take time. You're allowed to process. You're allowed to feel complicated feelings that don't reduce to simple yes or no. The oceanic love they're offering is serious, and serious things deserve serious consideration rather than reactive response driven by pressure to make them feel better quickly. The secret component is going to complicate your response because it's going to make you realize you didn't know them as well as you thought. Whatever they're revealing, whether it's timeline of their feelings or sacrifice they made or ways they've been suffering proximity to you, they couldn't have. It's going to make you reassess your entire friendship or relationship. You thought you knew what was happening between you. You thought you understood the dynamic, but they were playing completely different game, operating from completely different rulebook, experiencing entirely different reality than the one you perceived. And that revelation of how differently you've been experiencing the same interactions is going to be disorienting even before you factor in having to respond to their actual confession. They might reveal they've been in therapy talking about you, that they've written about you in journals you didn't know existed, that they've made major life decisions with you as determining factor when you thought you were barely on their radar. And learning that you've been central character in narrative you didn't know you were participating in creates weird retroactive responsibility, like you're being told you affected someone profoundly during period when you thought your impact on them was minimal, and now you have to reconcile those two versions of history into something coherent. Let's talk about the unexpected message from the other person, because it's going to intersect with the confession in strange ways. If the unexpected message is from X or from someone you used to have feelings for, receiving it right around time of oceanic love, confession is going to create comparison. You're going to weigh two different kinds of connection against each other. You're going to notice that one person is offering you depths while other person is offering you history. One is giving you intensity of feeling that's almost frightening in its commitment, while other is giving you familiarity and unfinished business. And choosing between those, um, or figuring out how to hold both without betraying either, is going to require emotional sophistication you might not feel you possess in moment when both are demanding response. The unexpected message might also be from someone warning you about something. Someone who knows secret about the person confessing oceanic love and feels you should know before you make decision. Or someone telling you about opportunity that's going to require you to move or change your life in ways that would make new relationship complicated. Or someone from your past who's arriving to remind you who you used to be before you became whoever you are now, offering you choice about whether to integrate your history or leave it behind, is less than has hone. Zero hash is greater than. The content matters less than the timing these messages are arriving together, because you're at crossroads and the universe or your subconscious or just weird synchronicity is making sure you have all the information you need to choose your path consciously, rather than defaulting into whatever's most comfortable or most insistent. This reflection matters. You're allowed to want the oceanic love and still be scared of it. Depth is beautiful, but it's also dangerous. People drown in oceans. People get lost in depth. And choosing relationship with someone who loves you that intensely means accepting that you're going to be responsible for feelings you can't fully control, that you're going to have power to hurt them more deeply than you've hurt anyone, precisely because they've given you access to parts of themselves they don't show anyone else. That's not a small thing to take on. Here's what happens next after you receive the confession, after you read the unexpected message, after you process the secret that changes your understanding of your relationship. You're going to have to respond, and your response is going to determine trajectory of multiple relationships simultaneously. If you reciprocate the oceanic love, you're choosing depth, intensity, relationship that's going to demand more emotional bandwidth than you might be used to giving. If you decline it, you're choosing to preserve your freedom, but you're also choosing to hurt someone who just made themselves completely vulnerable to you. Neither choice is wrong, but both have consequences you'll live with. Your response to unexpected message also matters. Ignoring it might feel safe, but it's also closing door that might not open again. Engaging with it might feel risky, but it might also resolve something you've needed to resolve for longer than you've admitted. And juggling both the new confession and the old business is going to require you to be clearer about what you actually want than you've probably been forced to be in a long time. There's practical element worth naming. The person confessing oceanic love has probably been planning what they'll do if you say no. They've mentally prepared for rejection, even though they're hoping for reciprocation. They might have plans to create distance if you don't feel the same, not because they're punishing you, but because they can't keep doing what they've been doing, loving you from proximity that allows them to see you but not have you. They might be preparing to move or to take jobs somewhere else or to significantly reduce contact. So your response isn't just about current relationship, it's potentially about whether relationship continues at all, because they've hit their limit on how long they can carry unrequited oceanic feeling. Finally, let's address the you that's reading this, who already knows who's about to confess. If you're not surprised by the name your mind just supplied, if you've been sensing their feelings and pretending not to notice, then the confession is going to force you to stop pretending. You're going to have to acknowledge what you've known and been avoiding. And your avoidance has probably been protective, protecting them from rejection, protecting yourself from having to hurt them, protecting relationship from changing is less than has hone. Zero hash is greater than. But protection has shelf life, and they've just decided yours has expired by choosing to confess, despite your signals, that you'd rather maintain status quo. The messages are coming. The oceanic love is going to be declared. The secret is going to be revealed. The unexpected communication is going to arrive. And you're going to be standing in the middle of all this intensity, all this vulnerability, all this weight of other people's feelings and your own complicated responses, trying to navigate toward honesty without cruelty, toward clarity without destruction. My love for you is as deep as the ocean. That's what they're going to tell you. And oceans are beautiful, powerful, life-giving, but they're also vast and dark and full of things you can't see until you're already in over your head. Decide if you want to swim in those waters. Decide if you're brave enough for those depths. Decide if their ocean is where you want to learn to dive, or if you need to stay on shore and watch from safe distance while they find someone else willing to explore the pressure and darkness and profound beauty of loving and being loved without reservation. The confession is coming. Be ready, or don't be. Sometimes the best responses come from the unready heart that's forced to speak truth it didn't know it was carrying. Trust yourself. You'll know what to say when the words arrive asking for your answer.